god, I'm still not used to talking to the camera. It's so weird. So I'm finally back. It's been about 2 years or longer since I made my other costume. This time I'm going to try to document the entire process and maybe teach you guys something new. So yeah, cue intro. Here is what I will be making. The art is by someone by the name of Igor. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing his name right, but I came across this Barbarian concept art and fell in love with it. So we're gonna try to do this justice. Probably not, but we're gonna try. Oh my god, this lighting is awful. Okay, so what I'm gonna be doing is I'm gonna show you guys what I've had done, and then we're gonna get started with what I think will be the quickest, and then we'll just progress from there. Right now, I do have the shoulder strap completed, the shoe cover completed as well, and then the arm brace. That's what it looks like. Ignore the pink, it was on clearance. I think what we should do first is the shoulder strap. So get your coffee. So first you gotta measure how thick you want this thing. I need to look at this instead of the phone itself. Okay. So what you need to do first is figure out how thick you want the strap. This is how thick mine is. And okay, I'm just gonna look at the camera. I'm used to it. So, and I can tell what I'm looking at. What I did was I looked at the reference photo and then I measured my shoulder, and this is how thick it ended up being. The determining factor was how big each square was. If you look right here, I based it on how big the square is on the reference photo. Now after that was completed, on the reference photo there is a gap between the square and then the trim. So what I do is the space is each notch is how thick my trims are. So I measure this because there's a space and then a trim, a space and then a trim, that's 4. So I just put this on here, measure 4 notches out, and then you get the width of your strap. Now the other thing that you have to measure is how many of each sections there are. So there's 5 of the pyramids and there is 4 of the square. And then if you look, there's also a little thing at the end. So what I did was I counted out how many of each of these sections, and then I counted how many spacings there are. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So you pretty much add all of this and then add 10 of each section. Now because there's an end to it, you can add a little bit extra. The main part is just the main strip. And just my luck, the entire strip of foam was the length that I needed it to be. So then I cut it out, rounded off the edges. So now all I'll have to do is cut out those corners. And I also like to Dremel it just to smooth it out. Okay, I just cut out everything, out your squares. What you're gonna be doing is making these little pyramids thing. What you need to do is get your square, find the center, and then what you're gonna have to do is shift the center point up. The amount that you shift up will dramatically increase how tall the pyramid is gonna stand. Once you have that point, you just need to make 4 of them, and then once you have 4 and you glue them together, they will stand up like that. I used cardstock, and then I used masking tape and masked over several layers until this thing was almost like construction paper, but it's a little bit stronger, because this is what's going to be holding the Worbla in place. If you don't have something to reinforce it, it will not sit, and it will just pretty much collapse on itself once you heat it up. Once you have your squares and once you have the amount of pyramid, then you are ready to cut out your Worbla. So now I just finished cutting out my shapes. I've glued everything together, and then I've also cut out my squares. Here is the Worbla that will be covering the squares. If you can see, the corners are cut out. It's so that when I fold it over, there won't be large sections that will be folding over. Like if you look right here, that's the result of that. So we don't want that. We want to clean it up a little bit. And here we go. You have it. It's covered. And now you just got to do that with the rest of the parts. Once everything's done, I'll just reheat these later and fold it over so it will sit on top like this. Okay, so next what we're going to be doing is making these studs that's going to go on our shoulder straps. Once you have all of your pyramids assembled, I know I showed them here actually taped up, but you want one side untaped, and I will show you why. So here are the shapes that I have cut out. They go on like that. So first what you want to do is you want to heat up your little Worbla pieces. So once it's heated up, you want to just grab your piece and stick it on there. Press it on good. I'll use my ruler since it's hot. And then while it's still hot, you can bend this into the shape of your pyramid, like so. And just line up the edge and make sure they stick together. You can just flatten it out like this a little bit and fold it down. That way you can get your two seams together. And then once they are together, you have your pyramid shape. I like to use a tool like this. It's a clay shaping tool. I got like a pack of 3 for like $2. And if you go to Michael's, they have coupons and you can save an additional 30% off. So once you have this shape, you just want to hold it out and then let it cool. It's very important to let it cool before you start doing anything else to it. We're going to be doing other things to this as well to reinforce it. So once it's cooled down, you can trim this up a little bit, and then always save your scraps. And the next part, we're going to be reinforcing this before we attach this to the main strap. There's a very good reason for that, because to attach this, you have to heat this up along with the straps, and because it's paper, it's very thin and it's still very malleable once you heat it up. So you want to reinforce this a little more, or else when you heat it up, it could collapse in on itself. And especially when you're trying to weather on the armor where there's cuts, and without some sort of reinforcement on it, it could collapse the shape. So what I like to do is get some scraps, like so. This is a good piece. And then what you want to do is trim out straight edges. And you want to heat this up. And then what you want to do is once you heat it up, you want to place it right here where the edges line up. And what they'll do is they'll hold the edges so that when you go to attach this onto the strap, the edges will be strong enough to where it'll hold itself up. And then just line it up. And once you have this line up, press down on it so it adheres itself to the paper. Just remember not to overheat this to where it affects the outer layer, because then it could affect the shape. Okay, so next we'll attach the other side. Once the sides are done, what I like to do is I like to place one last piece right on the center. And now your piece should be pretty reinforced and you are pretty much good to go. You just have to do this to however many more pieces that whatever you're making has. Okay, this next part is going to be a little bit hard to film because the strip is so long. But once you have all of your parts covered in Worbla, like the squares, the pyramid, reinforced, you're going to start putting them together.
So the main thing I'm going to be doing right now is bend the main strip into the shape of my shoulder. So I'm going to be bending this flat strip into this shape right here. So I just need a slight curve over my shoulder. It's a lot easier when you do this with someone to help you so that they can guide it. I do not have someone to do this for me, so I will be using the mirror. Depending on what your shoulder size are, all you have to do is heat pretty much the center part and then bend it to the shape. Okay, so here I've bent my shape into where I want it to be. Next we're going to be doing the trim right here. It's going to go around the entire strap. It's very important to keep these strips consistent, so I like to measure out 1 notch per strip. Different armor parts is going to have different sizes, as you can see right here. Yours is a little bit thicker, and then you have a thinner strip up top. So that's what we're going to be doing next. So I'm going to do that now. Here I've attached the trimming to the main strap. This part is pretty self-explanatory. I just kept the very last part right here blank because, as you can see on the main strap, this part has to go on first before you put on the remainder. That's to ensure that this part is flush to the main strap. So if you're doing the exact same thing, just make sure this part is you leave it blank until the very end. So I've marked the center part of the strap because this is where I'm going to put the very first stud on. So you want to make sure that's nice and centered. So here you can see I got the stud attached to my strap. What I'm going to do next is I'm going to be using a piece of foam to measure the distance between each stud in each square. Of course, you can use whatever you decide to use. Depending on the thickness, it's going to change the spacing. I found that this foam that I have right here was the perfect size, so that's what I'm going to use. So let's try to do this on camera. And you have a line right there. But yeah, that's what I'm going to be doing, is I'm going to use each one of these, place it on here. After this is on, I'll place this here, draw another line, and then eventually you'll get to the very end. 3 down. And a ton more to go. And it's done. Look at that. Now we have both of our straps. The very last part that we're going to do is this little section right here. All you will have to do is cut out a piece depending on what shape you're going for, and then finish your little trim. So that's what I'm going to do next. Once you finish with your last section, you're pretty much done with the straps. You just have to make another identical piece, and you can weather it however you'd like. What I did was I used a hot knife and I just cut into the Worbla, or you can actually just heat the section up and then use a regular clay tool to carve into the softened Worbla. I usually like to do the hot blade just because when you heat up Worbla, it could bubble the entire section up. So it's usually better just to go with the hot knife because it'll keep the heat in the general area that you're working on. Let me try to find a section where it kind of bubbled up right here. If you look right there, you can clearly tell that it bubbled up a little bit. Obviously, if this is a battle damaged piece, once you paint over it, it won't be as noticeable, but if you're anal, then it's better to use a hot knife. Yes! And it's done! And there you have it. The very first part of the costume is completed. Now the rest of them. So there you have it. That was part 1 of how to make this Barbarian costume with these straps. Next up, what we're going to be making is these parts right here. The band braces, arm guards, I don't know. So it'll be this and this. Stay tuned.